I know I'm a radical, aren't I?
Right, yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And then
I want state employees to have the same program I have, where I save for my own retirement and I pay into Social Security.
Right, and that would get rid of the...
I must be stopped.
Right, and that would get rid of the unfunded liabilities, because there would be no more unfunded liabilities.
Right, I mean...
The matching, what you mean by matching is sometimes companies, if you put in $100, they put in 50, 25, or, it used to be 100.
Back in, the dot-com boom, when they had money to throw around, companies aren't doing that any longer.
Correct. So, and that's what you mean by matching. But in the case of how does a pension work?
A pension is a defined benefit program, meaning that we're going to give you X number of dollars per month from your early retirement date to the end of your life, and in many cases for your spouse's life also. So that's a whole other thing.
Right.
Now, a defined contribution program is, we say, well, you can save so much per year into your 403B of your own money, and you can defer taxation on that until you use the money when you're in a lower tax bracket later in life.
Okay. And so, again, the difference would be in one case, the state, and when we say the state, that's the taxpayers, because ultimately we're the state, comes up with the money for the state employee. And these people, sometimes they retire at 50, 55, 60. So their retirement, that's 20, 30 years. And if their wife happens to be younger, you're saying that sometimes it goes into the spouse's life. So if you're 50 and you retire and your wife is 40, that could be 40 years of paying out benefits, even though you've done no work. So you might work for the state for 30 years, and then you or your heirs get money from the state for 30 to 40 years. And your idea is simply to do what the private sector does, which is that a portion of your salary goes into a retirement account that you or your financial advisor or whoever.
You either elect to save for your retirement or you don't.
Right,
Just like
but you're doing
it
on your own, and the state's not responsible for providing for your retirement.
Right. We got in this $80 billion hole, which again, like I said, is every citizen in Illinois owes $7,000 to this fund now. We got in this hole by making promises that we're not keeping. So let's stop making the promises going forward. Let's say if you want a retirement fund 403B, you save with your own money, and then you're required to pay in Social Security. And now the state is not going to give you any more of these pension credits.
And when people look at a salary, the difference between if 15% of your salary goes into a retirement account, as opposed to none of your salary goes into a retirement account, just someone promises you a retirement, that adds to your salary, that adds to your benefits. So that's another way that the state employees get a really good deal, because if you're in the private sector, you get 45 grand a year, you take up to 15%, put it into a retirement account, but it's all of your money.
Plus you pay into Social Security.
Correct. Whereas if you're working for the state says we're going to give you 45 grand, except it's above market value, so it's 55 grand. Plus, when you retire, we're going to give you 80% of that until you're done. With a 401k, if you save correctly and you invest correctly, then you're going to have enough to be 80% or 100% or whatever it is. But it was all your money. And there's a huge difference. And again, that's where you say, and how big is the unfunded liability?
Well, the pension liability is $80 billion.
And that goes up, what, for 100 years? Right.
Well, it depends how you calculate it. But yeah, we're $80 billion. There's $80 billion missing from the pension fund. We've been taking the money and whizzing it. We haven't been saving it.
And, that gets back to the original point we made, which was we're at a $13 billion deficit. And I
on the other books.
Right. And I always think, I was amused when I hear we have a deficit, because isn't it in the Constitution we're not allowed to have deficits?
Right.
And, one of the ways that we had the deficit was that they stole from the pension. And so, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's essentially, what's the overarching problem with all of this?
Well, our income or our tax revenues to the state of Illinois are up 50% over the last 10 years, but the spending's grown wildly under George Ryan and Rod Blagojevich. And I'll take aim at both parties. I'm not a party guy. It's about the person, not the party. We are told that there's nothing left to cut. Meanwhile,
who tells us that?
Well, people like John Cullerton, whose son joyrides in an SUV, allegedly drunk downtown, whose son's godfather is Michael Madigan. Michael Madigan, Speaker of the House, Chairman of the party. The majority party simply doesn't get it. That's why even if you're a Democrat, I've got libertarian views. I'm for full marriage equality. I'm for legalizing medical marijuana, but I'm also for the Second Amendment. I'm for all of the Constitution with its current amendments, not just some of them. I don't think that you can say, well, I believe in free speech, but I don't believe in this other, this other part of the Constitution. So I'm a libertarian candidate, really running within the Republican Party, and that means that I'll stay out of your pocket and out of your business. And that's why I think that Democrats need to say, if we send Scott Tucker's opponent, who's a pharmaceutical lobbyist, who's worked for Michael Madigan, who's an attorney, we're going to get more of the same. When I go to Springfield, I'll vote Mike Madigan out of the speaker's seat, take back his gavel, and put him back on the House floor where he belongs.
Right, and then he would probably retire.
To his law firm to appeal property taxes.
All right, let's finish it up. Explain what happened at the University of Illinois.
What hasn't happened at the University of Illinois?
With the clout list. Explain
right.
Really
well, one of my reforms is to do away with the deal where the state legislature can send kids to the University of Illinois on the taxpayer's dime just because that person is maybe a precinct captain's kid, or maybe somebody gave to your campaign, so now their kid gets a free college tuition. We need to knock all that off.
I didn't want to, for full disclosure, that's where I went. But what happened was a bunch of, and there were some Republicans, some Democrats, were calling in to the administration, high levels of the administration, and saying, hey, I know this kid shouldn't have gotten in. And look, the U of I, they got way too many applicants. All they do is basically look at where your GPA put you and compare that with your ACT, and there's a matrix. And so these kids fell out of the matrix. And they said, even though we fell out of the matrix, he's a really good guy, or whatever they said.
Kids with C's and D's getting into U of I because their parents either work for somebody's campaign or contributed or are business partners with a legislator.
What does that do to the general public when they hear stories like that?
It makes you angry, doesn't it?
It makes you feel like the government's working for the few at the expense of the many, and that gets back to your original point. You got Madigan is the godfather of Cullerton's kid. You got a little network, right? Madigan, Cullerton, Quinn, they're all part of the same machine. And then you go more local, they're all tied to Daly here, to the people in Cook County, and it all rides up. But it's at the expense of the many, because again, Madigan comes to Springfield, he works for the top law firms. Somebody comes to him with a zoning issue, and he can push it through as the Speaker of the House. Same thing with
property tax issue.
Correct,
most often.
Right, correct. So it's clout.
Madigan also represents all the banks too, just so you know.
And it comes back down to clout, and that's Pat's site is called Chicago Clout, and that's what happens. If you know the right person, then you swoop in, and that's what happened at the University of Illinois. It's what happens in Springfield. It's what happens everywhere, and it's what happens when. How long has Madigan been in the State House?
Oh, he's been Speaker of the House on and off for 30-some years.
Right.
There's 2 years where he had a little vacation.
It's what happens.
And he's back.
The Founding Fathers, did they ever expect people to be professional politicians?
No.
What was their vision of government?
Well, farmers and shopkeepers, and it would go serve for a short time. My deal, I'm telling people in my district, hey, I don't care if you're a Republican or not. I'm really not a Republican. I'm more libertarian than anything, meaning I'll stay out of your pocket, out of your business. Give me 2 years in Springfield to go raise heck with these guys.
If
you don't like the results, if you don't like the bills I introduce, if you don't like me standing up to Mike Madigan and John Cullerton, you can bring me back.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up. You want to give your final word?
Yeah, my name is Scott Tucker, and I'm running for state representative in Illinois' 11th State House District. It runs from DePaul University up Lincoln Avenue to Lincoln Square. TuckerForStateRep.com. I need, obviously, donations and volunteers and all that good stuff. Phone number 773-230-2682. You can email me at scott@tuckermailserver.com.
All right, and this is Mike Volpe for Chicago Clout.
Thank you.
I don't know how long that was. I saw 2 minutes. It was in my head, and so it was good. I ran it. It was a little bit short.